Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another episode in Tu Nha's inspiring journey, a story about resilience, hope, and the strength to rise above life's toughest storms. Yesterday, she faced one of the hardest days yet, an emotional storm that shook her to the core. But just like the calm that follows a fierce downpour, today brings a new chapter. What challenges will she face next? Will today be the turning point in her journey toward a better life? Tu Nha's path hasn't been easy. Each day tests her patience, her strength, and her will to keep going. But through it all, she shows us what it means to fight for a better tomorrow, even when the odds feel stacked against you. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we follow Tu Nha through this next part of her story. You won't want to miss what's coming next. It's raw, it's real, and it just might remind you that even in the darkest moments, there's always a light waiting to shine. Let's dive in. After the storm passed, life slowly returned to its quiet rhythm. The winds had calmed, the skies had cleared, and the damage, though heavy on the heart, was not beyond repair. Tu Nha's small home and backyard garden had taken quite a hit, but thanks to Kiet's kind support, things were beginning to look better. He came by and helped her fix what had been damaged, patching things up and lending a strong hand where it was needed most. This morning, with a rare moment of peace, Tu Nha and her daughter sat together on the front porch. The air was fresh, the earth still damp from yesterday's rain. As the world outside stirred with quiet life, they watched in stillness, soaking in the morning light and dreaming of a brighter, more secure future. Tu Nha gently rocked her daughter to sleep in her arms. With her little one resting, she grabbed a hoe and made her way down to the lower garden. Every bit of spare time counts when you're rebuilding. She dug a few rows in the soil, preparing space to plant new vegetables, maybe some strawberries this time. She also took a few moments to clear the weeds that had started creeping into the young garden beds. It's these small, quiet acts, tending the earth, nurturing the garden, that reflect her strength. Even after everything, she's not giving up. She's choosing to rebuild, to grow, and to believe in the promise of better days. As the sun gently rose above the horizon, casting a golden hue across the quiet countryside, Tu Nha was already hard at work. The morning air was crisp, carrying with it the fresh scent of earth, still damp from the night before. With her daughter sound asleep inside, Tu Nha took advantage of the quiet moment to head down to the garden. The weeds had sprung up fast after the recent rains, and she wanted to clear the beds and prepare the soil for new vegetables. Every small act, every turn of the soil, was a step toward reclaiming stability. Just as she was immersed in her work, she noticed a familiar figure approaching from the distance. It was Kiet. He had come by early to check in on Tu Nha and her daughter before heading to the woodshop for the day. His visits had become more frequent lately, always showing up with a quiet strength and a calm presence that brought a sense of reassurance. Tu Nha paused, wiping a bit of sweat from her brow as she greeted him with a smile. "Out in the garden early today, huh?" Kiet said with a light grin, hands in his pockets as he stepped closer. "I wanted to get a little work in while she's still sleeping," Tu Nha replied, gesturing toward the house. "Just trying to plant a few more greens and pull the weeds. After the rain, the grass is out of control." Kiet looked down at the rows she'd been working on, nodding thoughtfully. "Well, If you don't finish by this afternoon, I can come back after work and help out. Things are pretty slow at the shop today." Tu Nha met his eyes, her smile softening. She gave a small, appreciative nod and let out a quiet chuckle. "I'd like that," she said simply. They sat together on a low stone wall near the edge of the garden, chatting about everyday things. Harvesting fruit, plans for the market, the little triumphs and frustrations of rural life. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was warm and filled with unspoken care. Two people finding comfort in shared struggles and small victories. Before long, Kiet glanced at his watch. "I should get going," he said, rising to his feet. "But I'll swing by later, like I said." Tu Nha nodded again, watching as he walked away, then turned her attention back to her day. She went inside, gently lifted her still sleeping daughter onto her back, and wrapped her snugly in a cloth sling. With quiet determination, she headed down the path toward a neighbor's home, someone she trusted to watch her child for a few hours. There was work to do, and today's harvest of melons needed to make it to the market. She moved with purpose, but never rushed. Every step was filled with intention. For Tu Nha, this wasn't just about getting by. It was about building something better, not just for herself, but for the little girl on her back and the future she dreamed of giving her. These moments, simple, honest, and full of heart, are what make her journey so relatable. It's not the grand gestures that define strength, but the quiet ones. Showing up, day after day, with your sleeves rolled up and your heart still open. Meanwhile, down in town, someone else was making plans of his own. Tu Nha's ex-husband had been thinking a lot lately about the choices he made, the family he lost, and the road that led him here. For days, he'd been debating whether he should try to make things right or if it was already too late. That morning, he made up his mind. He stopped by the local shop and picked up a few small things, snacks and a little toy for his daughter, something simple for Tu Nha. Maybe it wasn't much, but it was a gesture, a way to show he was thinking of them. Then, with a quiet sense of hope and nerves he didn't want to admit, he made his way to her home. But as he approached the familiar path leading to the house, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. From a distance, he spotted Tu Nha in the front yard. She was laughing, relaxed, warm, almost glowing, and next to her was another man. The two of them were talking comfortably, like old friends, or maybe something more. They moved together with ease, laughing at something only they could hear. And then they began walking away down the road, still deep in conversation. A sharp pang hit him, one part surprise, one part jealousy, and one part regret. He ducked behind a tree, not sure what to do, unsure if he should go forward or turn back. He watched them for a while, but the distance made it hard to tell who the man was. Still, the familiarity between them was clear. Eventually, they disappeared from view, and he made a decision. He would wait. He sat down quietly by her doorstep, placing the small bag of gifts beside him. Time passed. The sun climbed higher, but there was no sign of her return. Looking around, his eyes landed on the half-turned soil in the garden. The rows looked freshly started. Some weeds were still tangled in the corners, and a small hoe was left stuck in the dirt. He sighed and walked over. He wasn't sure why, but something in him just wanted to help. Maybe to feel useful, maybe to reconnect, even in silence. He picked up where she left off, clearing weeds, turning the soil, finishing the rows she had started. It was quiet work, almost meditative. In some strange way, it felt like redemption, or maybe just a temporary peace. After he finished, he sat back on the steps, wiping his brow and glancing at the path again. Still no sign of her. The afternoon was starting to fade, and with it, his resolve. Maybe this was a bad idea, he thought. Maybe she's moved on, and maybe she's better off. With a heavy heart, he stood, ready to leave. But just as he reached the end of the path, a sudden thought struck him. He had left the small gift bag sitting on the porch. He turned around and made his way back, quietly and quickly, hoping to grab it without being seen. But as he rounded the corner and stepped onto the porch again, he froze. Tu Nha had just returned, with the same man from earlier. They were walking side by side, relaxed and smiling. But this time, he saw clearly. It was Kiet. A wave of realization hit him. Kiet, he remembered the name. He'd met him once while asking around about Tu Nha. They'd had a brief conversation, and Kiet had mentioned a woman he'd been helping, a strong woman with a child trying to rebuild her life. He hadn't thought much of it then. Now, it all clicked. That woman was Tu Nha. His breath caught in his throat. He instinctively stepped back into the shadows, not wanting to be seen. He watched as they walked up to the porch, completely unaware of his presence. They looked content, maybe even happy. He didn't know how to feel. Jealous? Hurt? Guilty? Probably all of the above. But more than anything, he felt conflicted. Because deep down, he knew Tu Nha deserved peace. She deserved to be with someone who showed up for her. Someone who stood by her through the hard times, not just when it was convenient. So, he waited silently until they entered the house, the door closing gently behind them. Then, and only then, did he step forward, grab the forgotten bag from the porch, and turn back down the road, the weight of realization sitting heavy on his shoulders. Now the question is, what happens next? Tu Nha's ex-husband has just uncovered something he didn't expect. The man he once had a casual conversation with, Kiet, is more than just a helpful neighbor. There's something deeper between Kiet and Tu Nha, something real. And now that the truth is out, how will he react? Will he confront them, try to win Tu Nha back, or walk away, realizing that maybe this time it's too late? Emotions are running high, and the road ahead is anything but clear. Tu Nha has fought hard to rebuild her life from the ground up. Just when things seem to be finding their rhythm, her past is suddenly knocking on the door again, bringing with it unanswered questions, unresolved pain, and a decision that could change everything. As for Kiet, he's been steady, supportive, and quietly present through it all. But now, with a new tension brewing, he may be forced to step into a conflict he never saw coming. So what lies ahead for Tu Nha and Kiet? Will this unexpected twist bring them closer together or tear everything apart? Stick around, because the next chapter in this story is just beginning, and it's going to be intense.
Nha đã lên kế hoạch để đưa hai mẹ con vui trở về nhà. Anh ấy đến tiệm tạp hóa và mua một vài món đồ cho con gái nhỏ và Tử Nha, rồi đi lên nhà của cô để thăm con gái nhỏ và nói chuyện tiếp với cô. Vừa đến gần nhà cô, anh đã nhìn thấy một dáng người đàn ông nói chuyện vui vẻ với cô. Anh ta vội vàng nấp vào một góc khuất để theo dõi và thấy hai người cùng nhau đi ra ngoài, nói chuyện rất vui vẻ. Nhưng do khoảng cách hơi xa nên anh ta không biết đó là ai. Sau khi sau khi ôi ơi, Dũng mở cửa cho Dũng. Sau khi Dũng mở cửa cho Dũng, sau khi thấy hai Lý Tử Nha và người đàn ông rời đi, vẫn quyết định ngồi ở nhà đợi cô ấy về. Ngồi được một lúc vẫn chưa thấy hai mẹ con về, anh ta nhìn ra vườn và thấy luôn có nhiều cối đang chờ đợi quyết định cô một tay. Sau khi làm xong việc chờ hồi lâu chưa thấy cô ấy về, quyết định ra về, nhưng trên đi lại bỗng anh ở quên đồ, quên quay lại. Kia liền đến nhà thấy Tu Nha vẫn đàn ông quê về.